Good morning. There's 28 people here already, so I will say good morning. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to SFI Live and Season 3. I can't believe we're heading into a third year of doing these webinars. It feels like 5 minutes. Yeah, so Season 3 has started. We haven't been here for a few months, so been a few changes, including our layout, as you can probably see, but also a few changes at Saffron, so new people coming in. So I'm going to go around and do introductions while we wait for a few more people to come online. So do the introductions to the guys and allow them to put in. But in the meantime...
Morning, everybody. My name's Tony Hall. I'm Head of Mortgage Sales here at Saffron, which basically means look after anything that's intermediary and mortgage related, really. Lots going on. I'm sure we'll talk through a lot of that as we go through the next hour. As Jay mentioned, we have new staff have joined the team, yeah, lots to talk about. I could take the whole hour with this intro, so I will back away.
Don't worry, I've got some questions for you later. You'll get to say it all, don't you worry. And we're joined today again by the lovely Debs. Hi, Debs. Do you want to do an introduction? Because actually there are some really new...
Today role, I'm also one of the telephone business development managers. So we take all of the telephone call inquiries from brokers, as well as email inquiries and also web chat inquiries and any registration inquiries. So basically we are there as a kind of a go-between for any inquiries that the brokers might have to do with anything at all to do with registrations, any case inquiries, anything that you want to talk through before you submit a case, really. We are there for you.
Thanks, Debs. That was really interesting, actually. Okay, so sorry about that. So hopefully we've just done a quick reset. So hopefully that's done something to those that aren't hearing us properly and what's going on there. It does rely on your internet connection. So if you've got children at home and they're playing on the PlayStation or they're streaming movies on Netflix, that will affect how much you get onto your laptops or phones when you're watching this webinar. So just bear with us. And there will be a recording at the end. So if you miss anything, we'll go back to it. So to explain again, the SFI Live is all about you, the brokers. So we're looking for your questions. So do pop them in the chat room. We're also going to be answering a lot of questions around a specific product on this one. But in future ones, we're really looking for your feedback and your information during this webinar. This a lot. But we have got a brand new audience on this one, which is a sign that people are interested to see what the self-build is about. So we are going to focus on self-build for at least the first half an hour, maybe a bit longer, depending on how many questions come in. And we'll go from there. So first of all, let's just delve a bit deeper into self-build. I'm going to go to Debs first because she's the expert. Tony just looking pretty with the tire. So Debs, just explain the self-build mortgage and custom build mortgage. Just a little bit of an explanation. If there's any rookie brokers on here that might need a little bit of a refresh or a first insight.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, basically the difference between have full control yourself. So you as a customer, you are the one that would employ the project manager if you want to do it yourself. Otherwise you employ a project manager. You would have the full design of the property, or you might want to do a redesign of a particular plot. For example, you might want to turn a pub into a residential property, but you have a far more greater degree of control over what you want to do. So difference between custom build is where you have somebody that would do the majority of it for you. You would have someone that, as I say, facilitated by a developer, whereas with a self-build, you would do it yourself. So they're the main differences between self-build and custom build. We do a great deal of self-build. It's one of our majority be doing or what you should be asking. Always give us a call and we will happily talk it through with you before you start.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, so guys, I know it seems that it's a problem at our end. We have got a full natural flow. I'm on the systems back office now. We've got a full signal our end. So it might just be a streaming issue on your end. Just make sure your emails, Teams, anything like that isn't open because that does take your bandwidth. So I'm sorry, it's not everybody. There are 52 people on here. I've only seen from about 4 or 5 people. So if anyone's still got a problem, let me know and I'll restart again. But at present, we are on full stream here. So we'll do the best we can to keep you connected.
Put ourselves on, as I said, we've got a dedicated team that look at it. So we've got a good track record of you know, a whole range of self-build options. It isn't just about buying land and building a house. It's all the other variants that I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit. So it's also, you know, big news as well with the government's, you know, not building enough houses. Major developers are struggling to build enough houses to meet demand. So one way of beating that is building your own home. And I think it's an article that we recently pushed out. Self-builders in the UK is about 13,000 self-build projects a year, which is equal in trying to do that with our products.
Okay, we will come on to that. Sorry, guys, I'm seeing the chat room. I am watching you. I'm going to do another reset in the hope that it will fix the issues for each of you, your end. So stay with us. Don't drop off. Stay with us. I'm going to do another reset. It takes about 15 seconds, and hopefully we'll get a better signal for you. So give me just 2 seconds. Okay, we're back. Hopefully this will work. If not, if you can hear me, you'll be emailed straight away after the session to a pre-record link, but also we will be putting up people's computers, so I do apologize. Okay, so let's start from the beginning then, Debs. It doesn't have to be a ground-up development. We know that. It can be a big project such as a barn conversion, and we can't know that. Well, we know that. Maybe they don't. But how does it all work from the ground up? So your client comes to broker goes, I'm not quite sure. What's the best advice you can give them in a short, sharp punch, Debs?
I would say first thing, before you do anything else, is for the broker to speak to the client and make sure that the case is affordable, designed, and they think they can build the property. So just first of all, test affordability. And when you're testing affordability, make sure you factor in where they're going to be living during the build. So factor in if they're going to be living in a caravan. If it's a caravan that they're going to rent, then you've got to factor in the rent of the caravan. If they're going to be living with family, that's absolutely fine. If they're going to be continuing to live in a rented property, factor in the rent. So we need to make sure that when they're living during the build, it can be affordable. So that's the first thing, just test affordability. When you've got the client, make sure that they've got a contingency plan built into their cost very, very quickly. So build in those factors and just say to the client, just make sure that you know that you can build in what you think you need to know. So build in a 10% or a 20% contingency plan and apply for the amount of money that you feel that they should apply for and not cut the cost down. But we will help you as best we can. They're the two main things: building contingency, go for affordability. Outline planning permission is what we're going to need at dip stage, because the underwriters need to see that there is an outline planning that the council have approved for. We don't just lend in container that they might want to convert into a house or something like this. So we can look at a number of different quirky things. So maybe 2 flats that are Victorian, that were originally a Victorian house that might need to be converted back into a main residence. So there's lots and lots of different things that won't necessarily be just the building of a property, that might need to be another version of what we could do under self-build. So there's lots and lots of different versions of self-build that we can consider. So lots of different areas that we will look at. But the main thing is just make sure it's affordable, make sure there's planning in place, and make sure that you've built in contingency.
Of the housing market, do you think this is something that we can look forward to see more of?
I'd like to think so. I mean, custom build is not, it's actually been around a number of years, but it is, you know, largely unknown. And I think it's one of those that kind of needs to work hand in hand with right to build and local authority granting access on brownfield sites. So as Deb said, custom build is an easier way in to building your own home, because actually it's facilitated by somebody else and you just get to choose a lot of it, the interior of what it looks like. So actually it is a vibe build, I would say. But I mean, one of the biggest custom build sites is the Graven Hill site in Bicester, and that's a classic example. I mean, that's on a huge scale. But you know, I think at any one time there's something like 1,400 sites available actually in the UK. You've just got to find them. So it is around. There are some challenges with lenders in terms of understanding custom builds, because they're a bit newer into that. But we will certainly take a view on anything that's given to us. So I do think it's a way forward. It needs to work in hand with local authority and legislation, and long may it.
You very briefly said about planning permission, land, etc. So the next question you kind of answered, but just maybe some tips. We will send a link directly to the website where this article that Tony's mentioned is, was really good tips, and there's a self-build guide which we absolutely love. But what do they have to have in place if you brokers, clients just arrive? What are they looking for before they really should even approach you guys?
Before approaching us, we absolutely need outline planning permission for the DIP. So we need to have outline planning permission because, as I said, we don't lend on land alone. So we need to know that there's outline planning permission with the intention of building of the works, the costings, the drawings, etc. Because when the valuer is to go around and do the first valuation on the property, because there isn't actually a property as such, we're going to know that the valuer is going to be tasked with looking at the breakdown of the costs and drawings, etc. And we're going to say to the valuer, can your client build that property that you've given us with those materials that you've said that you're going to build it with? So we're going to say to him, can you do that with those materials? And that's what we're going to ask him for. But at DIP stage, what you need is the outline planning permission. The main thing that you need is a supplementary information sheet as well. So on the website, who the project manager is going to be, about what the client wants to do, and any background information that you think that the underwriter might need to know. So if it's a funny construction, so when I say funny, it might be a new modern method of construction or something like this, you might want to put a little bit more detail on there. So you can put that on there as well. And you can make them aware of that on the supplementary information sheet. If you don't upload the supplementary information sheet, you just simply won't get a true enough decision from the underwriters because they won't be able to fully assess it. And it will just delay.
Is that commonly missed by brokers when they're submitting the DIP?
Yes, unfortunately, yeah. So it will just mean that you're just going to get a decision run on affordability. And
I was just watching the chat room. On those things, so it's really vital that the plans and everything that's done is done by a professional, isn't it? Not, I mean, ideally, you need to be having a proper construction company builder that's qualified, an architect that has put together formalized plans. It's as a bare minimum. It would be recommended that you have, someone that's done this before. We will look at those projects where somebody's just doing it themselves, but it will just make us delve into it in a bit more detail to make sure that they truly have, because particularly now with the cost of building materials getting a bit higher than it was, I think that's an understatement, then it's even more important to make sure you've got a handle on it, and having a professional who can really help you cost, you'll need this many of this and this many of that, and your contingency is X. So it's really advisable. Yes, it will cost you more, but actually it will cost you less in stress and hassle and time later on in the build. Okay, just sorry to interrupt our conversation again because chat room's going crazy again. Guys, I know you're having technical issues. We're recording this as if it's a pre-record. So please put your questions in the chat room before, and then I will make sure you all get the link. But at least we can answer your questions to make sure this wasn't a worthless exercise for you. And what I'll do as an apology is send your CPD certificates with the emails so that you can log your time in your CPD because you were watching on demand. So that's the least we can do. Again, apologies for the issues. It's not obvious this end what the problem is. And I can only assume it's because everybody's at home and the internet's being put under pressure by the children being off school. So I do apologise, but I will look into it and I will speak to Webinar Jam and see if there's a problem our end. So my apologies, but please, questions before you go. Thank you. Okay, sorry, Tony.
And when it's a self-build, we won't look favourably on something that's got shared access. So we're always going to be looking at something along the lines of, if we had to resell the property, would we be able to resell it without any issues? So anything where standard along the lines of, if there's a working farm nearby. So if you're looking at a barn conversion, for example, a barn will typically be along the lines that there's a farm nearby. So look for a barn to see whether the farm that it used to be attached to, how close is it? Is it still working? If it's still working as a barn, as a farm, then we wouldn't 100% flat roof as a property, but that's standard across the board anyway. But generally, I would say look to come to us if you have any inquiries and you're not sure. But the standard would always be around whether there's agricultural ties, whether you've got equestrian ties, but they will always tend to be around farms and when you're looking at rural properties, so very rural properties. On houses as such, very much now at the moment with modern methods, we are very favourable in that area. We don't have standard issues with modern methods of construction. It would all come down to who's actually, but we try and with self-build, with it being a new project, we try and look at them with an eye that says we would like to say yes rather than like to say no. But I would always say come to us if you have any questions. Great
stuff. Okay, so let's talk a bit more detail, Debs. I'm going to have to stay with you, sorry, because I think Tony would just pass it back anyway. On a bit more of the details. So we pay out in stage payments. So perhaps we need to look at that a little bit and just say, how does that work? What are the stages? How are they decided? Maybe can you just go into a bit of that detail?
The stage payments are fluid in the sense that they're never set in stone. So the stage payments are very much largely agreed behind us that with a stage payment, we don't release that stage payment until a reinspection fee has been paid first and until it's been successfully valued. So for every stage payment that you have, there'll be a £195 fee that has to be paid first. The good thing about a stage payment, if there's a good thing, is that your client won't pay any interest on any money that they don't draw down. So if you have a facility that your client actually wants to borrow of say 500,000, but they only draw down 400, then you won't pay interest on the whole 500. You'll pay interest on the 400, and say, or the servicing team will say, right, I now want to have another release made, please. They'll arrange for a reinspection fee to be done. Value will go out after you've made the reinspection payment. And as long as that's been successfully done, you've actually had the valuation go out there, then we'll release that next stage payment. The thing to bear in mind is that depending upon the product that your client has selected, there'll be a loan to value limit. So say, for example, you pick the self-build product, which has got an 80% limit that will actually be overexposed to. So we'll say we'll end up to 80% of the build costs, but we won't, like a retention, we won't release any money until we've done a successful valuation on the back of a reinspection.
I got that. Hopefully the audience did too. Have you got any questions on that? The on-demand link that everyone's probably watching does have a submit question, which goes straight to the team. So do submit your own questions and someone will come back to you once we've received them. Okay. What happens if the project falls dramatically behind? Tony just mentioned we've got some issues with material costs. There's huge issues with labour at the moment. Is there any kind of way that Saffron helps to mitigate that and support the builder, the borrower to sort of get through?
Now for 2 years, and we're just going to come back to you in 2 years and say, right, we're going to convert you now to a standard mortgage. These are heavily looked at and monitored by the servicing team to see where they are at any one point. So we always keep a look on the self-build mortgages that we've got currently to make sure that they are on target, where they are within the next stage payment, and when they're actually going to be wanting the next stage payment. So we don't tend to have an issue. If we were concerned, then we would actually go to the client and the broker and say that we needed to be aware of where they are at that one particular point. And of course, like all mortgage lending, we would want to know that we could help. We see too many cases where after a self-build mortgage is completed, that sometime afterwards, the client will come back to us to say, I've run out of money. Now I need to borrow some more money, please, because I can't complete the build. And then we're faced with a situation where we either have to test re-affordability again and then decide whether we can release funds. And from a broker perspective, those inquiries are dealt with in-house and out of the broker's control. So it's about making sure that you ask the client to apply for a realistic amount of money, which they may then not need to draw down on. As
quickly revert to credit cards, which is great, but you pay, you get the money quickly, but you're paying for it a lot. So a lot of that, if you plan it correctly and look for alternatives, can save you an awful lot of money. And those are those are projects that we're prepared to take on. So mid-build. So again, with all of this, I have the joy of a really knowledgeable and friendly team within intermediary support and all my field-based business development team. Just ring them, all the contact details on the website, talk them through a case, and we'll help you from start to finish.
Still only paying interest off on the credit cards and loans they took out because they didn't take enough money for the build. And they were only paying off interest. So their debt level hasn't dropped. Credit ratings next to zero. So actually the chance of any more credits out the window because they're still paying off what they've put onto alternative routes. And it's not cheap. You know, the interest rates on credit cards and loans are nowhere near where mortgages sit. It's certainly not this particular product, which I'm going to let you plug in a minute. But it's common, isn't it? I mean, we see it on grand designs, but actually we think, oh, it's because they do such big buildings. But this can happen to the smaller ones too, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it is that acute. So you can see how it gets into challenge. And that's why Debs is saying, give yourself a consistent contingency fund. You know, we recommend at least 10% of the bills should be.
Well, they were, I read something, I don't know if it's yesterday or Monday, an article saying from somebody, I think it might have even been somebody from NAXPA, but don't quote me on that, saying that whatever you're putting in as your building costs to build, add 20% on top because inflation's already nearly at 10%. So actually, it's going to only get a little bit worse before it gets any better. I nearly went political then, get off that subject. But it's very much, just being a bit sensitive.
In terms of getting it right, because you don't want to underbuy and end up then having to go and pay twice as much, but you also don't want to overbuy and end up with something that you don't actually need. So I think that's one top tip for any builder would be just, you know, invest that money that might feel like it's dead money, but actually it's not. It's going to save you a fortune.
Okay, Tony, here's your chance. It's direct plug time. Here comes Tony. I should have a jingle for you for this, shouldn't I? Like Tony's little advertising 5 minutes. So we're talking about self-build because we've got a smashing, cracking, however you want to call it, summer deal.
We held back the SVR increase from the last rise in order to make the product that little bit more affordable. We've removed our application fee, which was £300, and we've also reduced our arrangement fee by 50%. So it was 1% of the loan amount. It's now 0.5% of the loan amount. So we have two products in our range. Well, actually, we have three products. We've got large loan as well. So let's start with the standard one. So we've got a range starting at 3.79, and that's for one that does 65% price and 80% of the build cost, and a maximum development value of 80%. Okay, so that's on our up to £1 million range. And then this is
what we call the homes under the hammer gang.
That's right.
So let's move over to the grand designs gang.
The grand designs, but actually that kind of in between, because there's a lot of property. But yeah, to build a house over £1 million, that's you're building a big house. But we are seeing an awful lot of people doing that. It is staggering actually at the moment. So we then have our self-build large loan that starts £1 million to £2 million, which you can source, but we can go above £2 million. Attractive for customers, so there's a good opportunity there. So you're not the fee cost has gone down quite a bit as well there.
But it does double whammy, really, doesn't it? Because the upfront costs are harder for people to get at the moment with the cost of living crisis as it is. We keep calling it a crisis, but I'm sorry, but every day it seems to be more and more of a crisis. So I'm going to stick with crisis. But also it's happened that kind of long-term rate deal. And just to say, actually, I looked at this when you first sent over the details of the new products and stuff. The rates are actually cheaper than they were previously, even though there's been an SVR increase. So actually, there's a discount on a discount to it. Just don't ring the number. Just don't ring the number.
By the signs of it, is it Debs? I don't know.
Yeah.
Debs, what is it? Because I can change it immediately, and then we won't get any
582925.
582925. Bear with.
Got all the gremlins.
See, I'm that organised. I can change these things immediately. See,
You're
look at
so
that.
Clever.
Look at
that. Well done. Perfect.
You can't
now make me look.
Yeah, I know. I can't do anything about BT Openreach having a bit of a breakdown and loads of people on strike and their technical issues causing the problem. I've just googled it. Domestic supply is pulling a lot of people after me. I've got a lot more of it. I'm joking. Right. So Tony, Scissor Summer offer on the website now. Best way to find it, I found actually, is go to our social media channels. Go on LinkedIn, go on Twitter. Twitter address at the bottom. Have a look on there for the Saffron Summer mortgage deals. The Self Builders Live. On the page of that, we've put an article with loads of tips and tricks on it. We've got the Self Build Guide, which is literally a Bible on how to look at self build and how to work with Saffron on it, which is absolutely brilliant. We will be adding more and more to that as we go along as well. So pop onto the social media channels, follow the reads, because we had a little conversation prior to this webinar. It's, you know, the industry's going through a bit of a woo moment at the moment. So why don't we just, for a start, just explain a little bit about why you launched Intermediaries and what it's all about, just for those that weren't with us last time.
Yeah, Intermediaries was really a clear statement of intent from the Saffron to recognise that ease of service and ease of access is paramount in the intermediary market. You know, for you to feel confident to use a lender and to put your reputation on the line with your clients, it's important to use us. Okay, so this is not a one-hit thing. This is an ongoing intention and initiative to drive up our service and continually improve and learn about what we do. And trust me, right now, with the volumes we're getting and the stress that we are under, we are learning a lot about how we can potentially make things better going forwards. But the challenge is we're so busy, you can't legislate for that. So we're doing what we can, and we can talk about that later. So Intermediaries was about transparency and saying, we know that being easy to
do as well, though, isn't it, Tony? We're looking for honesty and openness and feedback as much as anything else, not just waiting for a survey to come through, but actually, you know, we've had some lovely ones. I've seen them on LinkedIn from Leslie and Jackie and some of the guys in the sort of regional team that have had some lovely feedback from clients because they bend over backwards for them. And that's one thing you're quite proud of, isn't it?
Yeah, look, my team, you know, unsung the amount of effort that brokers probably don't see that goes on to make things work when they get a bit stuck is huge. And you know, that's not just we've got everybody helping, so there's a lot going on, and none of us want to be in these stressful situations, but you know, the show must go on. But sometimes the show's a little bit slower than it should be, and we recognize that. But we thank people's brokers' understanding, and you know, we're getting a lot of phone calls at the moment asking about how's their case doing, which is I fully understand, but we have clear SLAs which we do state on our website, and the problem is every time that phone rings, there's a processor not doing the thing that the broker's ringing about. I would say, I know that's hard to take when you've got an estate agent or a client in your ear, but that is the one thing I could say is manage the expectations. Everybody's busy, and it isn't just us. Just look at everybody else as well. So it's a tough time, but I've got great people that will still help you whenever they can.
Debs, Tony's plea was very well worded and very well put. You are the person on the end of the phone. You know that there's a lot of queries and questions coming through. What excuse me, what bit of advice would you give to brokers during truth?
It is really, I think it's the problem is that when you've got, I mean, I was a broker for a lot of years, and when you've got an estate agent that's calling the broker or calling the client to say we're going to put the house back on the market, it starts a knee-jerk reaction, particularly from the client, because they say, my house, I'm going to lose my house. Unless they sell that house to somebody who's chain free and a cash buyer, or we don't have a bottom drawer with blow up underwriters in that we can suddenly magic and blow up and say, right, we've got another 2 or 3 ready to go. That we haven't got any more, and they are working really long hours. And so unfortunately, we are at a position where the time and the SLAs that we are at are where they are. All I would say is that if you know where the SLAs are and you can see them on the website, and you call to say, where is my case, then as Tony said, it just means that somebody's answering the phone and they're not dealing with some more work, so it gets further and further behind. If an escalator on the website right now, but I can't get those cases escalated any quicker. Unfortunately, it is just a very tough world that all lenders are in. It's not just us; all lenders are in.
So, sorry, Debs, I'll just cut in there. So there are a lot of things that brokers can do to help us, and this isn't a new story. So, but it's about submitting a fully packaged case every time. So one of our beauties is that you don't have to have a fully packaged case in order to submit a case to us. However, if you don't, then that will elongate the period of time that it's in the processing. One of the biggest failures is there's an expand plus button on the list. It only shows the top 4. If you don't expand that list, and what we see a lot is brokers going, oh, I've submitted a full case, but they've missed 3 or 4 items. So click on that button and expand.
2 squares next to each other.
Yeah, expand that full list. We are currently working on a guide that will help show this in more detail, and that will be out soon. So the first thing is check what you need. The second thing is make sure that the documents you're sending to us look okay and are acceptable. So we're sending out, as I said, a guide that's going to help you understand what do our underwriters look for on a processor, and means they don't have to come back to you to ask you the same question. So it's about helping yourself, just making sure that pay slips and bank statements all add up, that the right information is there. So that then means if you get all your application details in at once, the processor goes through, looks at it all, ticks it, goes, yeah, we instruct the valuation, and it gets into the underwriter as soon as possible. If you send them one at a time, that's a real problem for you, because it's going to take you and your client an awful lot longer to get to that stage. So that's going to really help us at the moment. But, going back to about learning and stuff, one of the things we used to always ask for was evidence. Just to start, there's an awful lot more that we are doing that you will see that will make us easier to do business with. But for now, just have a look at the stuff you're sending us and going, would you ask a question on that if you were the lender and the underwriter? And if the answer is yeah, give us the answer on a note, or ring the BDM, ring IST, ask their opinion on it, and we'll very, very gladly help you and support you.
Great stuff. Okay, we're not getting any questions in, but we're also running out of time. So we've managed to fill the time quite well with that conversation, and actually some good advice in there for mortgage.
We've also got details on there for contact us if you need to find who your BDM is.
BDM finder. Should we talk about that?
BDM finder.
Yeah. So what's the BDM finder? Let's talk about that just for a moment.
Yeah, that's on the contact us page. It will be developed further, but for now it does what it needs to do. Type in the first 2 letters of your postcode, click search, and it will pop up who your BDM contacts are and whether they're BDM and telephone BDM. It'll also have details on there as well. So very easy. Put in the first 2 letters of your postcode and you know exactly who it is to contact. So yeah, another person in a slightly different role supporting our key partners. We've also got more telephone BDMs. We've also growing the business development assistants on the phone line as well. So we're adding people in because we're learning that's what we need to do. And the other thing as well, Deb talked about we don't have blow up underwriters, but we actually do have proper underwriters on the way. We are increasing and growing our headcount there, but that does take time. So if I'm honest, that's going to be 2023 before that really impacts. But again, we're learning and we are trying to make that difference.
Great stuff. Okay, last few things in that we've always dictated what we're going to talk about. Now we want you to tell us what you want to talk about. So we're looking for specific products you've got issues with or not enough knowledge on, or perhaps you want to just up your knowledge, or perhaps you've got people in your team who are junior who want the knowledge. So it's about products, issues you're having regarding, cases with other lenders, cases with Saffron, all this kind of stuff, but something you consistently come across that perhaps we need to address and provide you and educate you and teach you about. So we could do that. We could talk about what's going on in the market, anything you like, we can talk about it if it's relevant to getting a mortgage and obviously relevant to Saffron. So every time we do a webinar, at the very end, you'll get an email from us about 20 minutes after we leave the webinar, just saying, can you fill in this form? Just a couple of questions, 3 answers, just says, what would you like to talk about? What products you're particularly interested in? Anything you want to talk to us about? And what we'll do is we'll collate those, and the most popular will literally determine what the next webinar is about. All right, so you are in full control here. We've completely taken away all our push. We might just come in with a bit of product, but we're not going to take up the hour with it. We're going to do what we need to do to talk about it. If there's something new or something exciting, obviously we're going to want to talk about it. But this is all about you. So SFI Live Season 3 is all have a copy which you can download on your screen right now. And thank you guys for filling in the survey as well. That was really useful. So very quickly, website is saffronforintermediaries.co.uk. That's never very easy to say, some of the list, but saffronforintermediaries.co.uk. Debs, just to confirm, that is the right phone number on the screen?
Yes, it is the right phone number on the screen.
Great stuff. And if people have specific case issues, is it best to go through that number?
Yeah, give us a call.
If they're external, never worked with Saffron before, should we send them to the brokers, the BDMs instead?
Right, talking to brokers. That's what I paid them to do. So you're easier for getting off speaking to the intermediate support team on that number. Well,
thank you guys, and thank you for those that have remained in and online with us. We will get to the bottom of technical issues, but from what I can tell, it's an industry-wide thing. It's not just us. But I will double-check it's not the platform for the future. But we've used this all the way through, never had a problem once. And that was during a school holiday last time, Tony, wasn't it? So it's whenever the kids are off, we seem to have a bit of techie issues. So maybe the government, I promised I wouldn't be political, maybe they can pull their finger out and change the infrastructure for the internet. That with Holly, I watched it back and realised how rigid we were compared to what we are now. It was a bit more sort of flowy. Yeah, if you want a bit of a laugh, go back and watch us. I was a lot bigger lad back then as well. Amazing what lockdown does to your weight gain. But again, thank you so much, guys. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I'll put this on demand, and hopefully we'll get those people back there.